Now, Ecclesiastes stands out in the wisdom literature of the Bible, the book of Job, the Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, Psalms, Proverbs. It's attributed to the preacher Koheleth, son of David, king in Jerusalem. The preacher, people think it's Solomon, but doesn't necessarily say that. It does say the son of David. It reflects not accepting the simple answers, and it talks about the fleeting nature of humans, nature that want wealth, pleasure, wisdom, to want everything. And Ecclesiastes for all Christians is vital because it strips away our illusions of having this control over our lives, and it sort of redirects our hearts from the temporary to the eternal. And it really drives to find true purpose in fearing God and keeping His commandments. So I'm about to go through a little verse by verse breakdown, but first I'd like to pray. Dear God, I'd like to ask that as I read this, you watch over me, and that the words coming out of my mouth are not of me, but of your Holy Ghost, Lord. I'd like to ask that as I read this, that you can allow me to have that wisdom, that you can grant me the wisdom, that I can read this and that I can understand it and comprehend. Lord, I'd like to ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. So it starts off here. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. It says the words of the preacher, or Koheleth, means the one who gathers, like a teacher calling people to listen. It invokes David's line, son of David, and the author claims Solomon's royal authority without centering on his political achievements. And it says, vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. It says in the Hebrew, havel, or vapor, or breath. It conveys emptiness and translucence, like life's pursuits, no matter how grand, pass away like mists in the morning sun. It says, what profit hath a man of all his labor which he hath taketh under the sun? Isn't in his labor, he's asking, apart from God's purpose, what lasting value does our human labor yield? And it says here, one generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to his place where he arose. The wind goeth towards the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. He's conveying and taking into account creation's rhythms, birth and death, day and night, and the winds and the waters. It's saying life is a perpetual, unchanging cycle. And human efforts can't alter these grand patterns. These one generation pass away, another one come, all this stuff, the rivers, the wind goeth, and you can't really change that. And it says over here, all things are full of labor, man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. And even when your life overflows with experiences, your heart will remain restless, because that pleasure will never fully satisfy. Your eye is not satisfied with seeing, and your ear is not satisfied with, or not filled with hearing. And it comes into this, the thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It hath already been of old time, which was before us. Despite changes in the times, human nature and its struggles will always repeat. What we call innovations, it is often just ambitions, as we see. And this is new, it hath been already of old time, which was before us. It's just again, this is very poetic in the way that it gets into these things and the way that it goes into depth about all of this stuff. Okay, and it says here, There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. Again, today's headlines, today's greatest names are forgotten by future generations. I could look back of what remains, go a couple hundred years back and go a couple hundred years back, and names slowly wither away. It says, I, preacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I gave my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Now, Solomon is, the preacher, draws on his unique vantage point. He's talking about his governance, and he's saying wisdom, like pleasure, fails to deliver permanent contentment. And that's the main point. These things are going to fail to deliver permanent contentment. And it says, that which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered. It says this because some injustices and crookedness and mysteries in life resist a remedy because we encounter this crookedness that we cannot correct, and the deficiencies are the calculation lacking. The deficiencies, it can't be calculated, it can't be numbered. It says, communed with mine own heart, saying, lo, I am come to great estate, and have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me in Jerusalem. Yea, heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I gave my heart to know wisdom, and to know the madness and folly. I received that this also is vexation of spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. Now, the deeper that Solomon dug into wisdom is the more that he realized human wisdom is just magnifying your awareness of human sin and suffering and your mortality, your eventual demise. Knowledge without God, let me think of a way to phrase this. Knowledge without God accentuates grief. It's a good way to put it. We start off this second chapter saying, I said in mine heart, go now, I will prove thee with mirth, and therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. Launches into his experiment. Words that he's saying. He says, what if life's meaning were simply found in mirth, joy, laughter, entertainment? Right away he labels even pleasure vanity, signaling that it can't deliver a lasting purpose like all the rest of these things. He said of laughter, is it mad, and of mirth what doeth it? I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heavens all the days of their life. And you can look at this, and here he weighs wisdom against sensual indulgence. He's tasting wine and foolish fun, and he asked, does the variety of pleasure satisfy? And his verdict here is folly and feasting leave the heart unsettled even when guided by wisdom. And it says here, I have made me great works, I builded me houses, I planted me vineyards, I made me gardens and orchards, I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruits. I made me pools of water to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. Also I had great possessions of great and small cattle, above all were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasure of kings and the provinces. I gat me men singers and women singers, and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, that of all sorts. Again, Solomon, he's talking about his worldly achievements. He's saying these gardens, these building of houses, the making of pools, the servants, the maidens, And he's saying, in listing these, he's already saying that his accumulation and his pursuing of this doesn't cure his emptiness. And he continues here saying, so I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me, and whatsoever my eyes desired I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. Then I looked on all the works of my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. Now, at the peak of his wealth and influence, he admits that every project, every luxury, no matter how impressive, it just feels like chasing the wind. All was vanity and vexation of spirit. So it's saying all was done and trouble of spirit. And let's see, no matter how impressive, success inevitably just yields very little lasting gain and doesn't cure the emptiness. And he says, and I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do that cometh after the king? Even that which he hath already been done. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. And I myself perceived also that one event happeneth to them all. Then I said I in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth even to me. And why was I more wise? And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart that this is also vanity. For there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever, seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. And how dieth in the wise man as the fool. He compares the wise to the fool, and he's saying wisdom gives you clearer insight, and fools are ignorant of lasting values, and they may enjoy simple things without overthinking. Both paths, however, wend towards the same end. It says, and how dieth the wise man as the fool. It's the same ending. And it says, therefore I hateth life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit. I hated my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he rule over all my labor wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This is also vanity. Therefore I am about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and in equity, yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This also is vanity and a great evil. For what hath man of all his labor and of the vexation and of his heart wherein he hath labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This is also vanity. He's speaking frankly, the preacher speaking frankly. Watching someone else inherit your hard-won labor that gains, whether capable or not, can provoke a bitterness, and labor without joy just becomes a sore travail. And it's highlighting how God's good gifts turn poisonous when we lose the capacity to join them through looking with this viewpoint. And you could look into here, these last couple verses of the chapter. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who else can hasten hurry unto, and more than I? For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he giveth travail, to gather and to heap up that he may give to him that is good before God. This is also vanity and vexation of the spirit. The preacher, is closing the chapter. He acknowledges a gracious exception of the simple pleasures, eating, drinking. The meaningful works are gifts from God when our hearts can rest in him. And enjoyment becomes both right and refreshing through fleeting in themselves. And it points back to the one who can stand true commitment. For God giveth a man that is good in his sight. And you can see here, we're starting off chapter 3. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. It's affirming that God is ordaining the timing of every event, and that nothing happens by accident. Each season of life is serving a divine purpose. We continue picking it up. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time of war and a time of peace. And this obviously shows the full spectrum of the human experience in each contrasting pair. They're putting these pairs together. A time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones. Obviously, a time to love and a time to hate. A time to war and a time of peace. Very opposites, and God's sovereign hand sets the boundaries. No emotion or action or event exists outside of his permission or purpose. Verse 9, it says, What profit hath he that worketh in that wherein he laboureth? Solomon pauses to ask, what profit, what lasting gain comes from he that work, comes from our efforts under these shifting seasons? Without God's blessing, even our hardest work yields little beyond the moment. It's this too shall pass. So you see, I have given the travail which God hath given me to the sons of men to be experienced in it. He hath made everything beautiful in this time. Also he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work of God that maketh from the beginning to the end. Here he's contrasting that human toil with God's artistry, or that human labor with God's artistry. While we labor, he's weaving the beauty into every season, but his grand design remains partly hidden to us. You could read about this in Habakkuk. His grand design is always going to remain partly hidden to us from our eyes. Verses 12 to 13, I know that there is no good in them, but for a man to rejoice and to do good in his life. And also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. This is the best response to life's mysteries, is to enjoy the simple gifts. Meaningful work, meaningful relationships, and acts of kindness, and to recognize that they come directly from God. And it says, I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. For God doeth it, then men should fear before him. And it talks about fear. This verse is underscoring his unchangeable promises, his unchangeable purposes. His purpose is never changing. His plans are going to stand beyond human interference, and nothing can change or subtract or augment from his sovereign will. And you see, that which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been, and God requireth that which is past. It's reiterating the book's theme of recurring patterns. So he reminds us that God holds us accountable for how we steward each season. He said, "Moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there, and that place of righteousness, that iniquity was there." Iniquities, another word for sin. I said in mine heart, God shall judge the righteous and wicked, for there is a time there for every purpose and for every work. And it says this, and he confronts an apparent injustice or apparent thing that wicked sometimes prosper and the righteous suffer. And again, you could read about that in Habakkuk, Job. The wicked sometimes prosper and the righteous sometimes suffer. Yet he anchors hope in the truth that God's righteous judgment will ultimately set all things right. And let's pick it up right here and go to the end. It says, I said in mine heart concerning the estate of the sons of men, that God might manifest them, and that they might see that they themselves are beasts. Moving camera. And they that see that they themselves are beasts, for that which befalleth the sons of men befalleth beasts, even as one thing befalleth them, as the one so dieth the other. Yet they have all one breath, so that a man hath no preeminence above a beast, for all is vanity. All go unto one place, all are of the dust, and all turn to dust again. Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upwards, and the spirit of the beast that goeth downward to the earth? This is about morality. Like this is all about morality. Death is the greatest equalizer. Kings and the wise and the fool all go unto one place. We all are going to die, and we all share the same fate. And humbling us, our human pride will call us back to our Creator. It says, wherefore I perceive that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice on his own works, for that is his portion. For who shall bring him to see what shall be after him? Again, even just to read this is closing the chapter. It's circling back to talking about the healthiest posture in every season. It's always to embrace the good that God offers, the joy, the work, to rejoice in your own works, for that's your portion, and kindness, and as his gracious provision to embrace that. And we get into Ecclesiastes chapter 4. I'm gonna get a water. We're starting off, so I returned and considered all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, so the tears of such as were oppressed, and they had no comforter, and on the side of their oppressors there was power, but they had no comforter. And Solomon is talking about injustice again. He sees people crushed by unjust power, oppression. We're reminded of our calling to bear one another's burdens, offering the comfort of Christ where human compassion fails. It says, wherefore I have praised the dead which are already dead, more than the living which are yet alive. Better is he than both they, which have not yet been, who have not seen the evil work that is done under the sun. Observing, there's this endless sorrow. He envies those who never live, and even the deceased who no longer endure this oppression. Under the sun, it's a stark picture of life without God's redemptive hope. He says, again, I considered all travail and every right work, that for this man is envied of his neighbor. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. The fool foldeth his hands together and eateth his own flesh. Better is a handful with quietness than both the hands full with travail and vexation of the spirit. Again, to contrast joy with sorrow, to have that simple celebration of God's gifts can be better than a life weighed down by envy-driven labor. Wisdom always clarifies life's purpose, but folly only multiplies worry. And not wisdom as he searched for in his life, but wisdom as is written here. Verses 7 and 8, then I returned and I saw vanity under the sun. There is one alone, and there is not a second. He hath neither child nor brother, yet there is no end to all of his labor, neither in his eyes satisfied with riches, neither saith, For whom do I labor, and becrive my soul of good? This is also vanity, it is a sore travail. Pick it up. Two are better than one, there because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat, but how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and threefold cord is not quickly broken. This passage celebrates teamwork and fellowship. It's really a core to Christian identity. From small groups to local church, we see practical proof. It's talking about fellowship, but it also does say here, better is a poor and a wise child than an old and foolish king, who will no more be admonished. For out of prison he cometh to reign, whereas he that is born in this kingdom becometh poor. I consider all the living which walk under the sun, with the second child that shall stand up in his stead. There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before him. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this is vanity and vexation of spirit. Fresh wisdom, like he says, the poor child and the wise man, it's gonna outshine aged foolishness. Yet the crowd chases novelty. Popularity will always shift with the wind, and it will expose your hearts. And even wise leadership fails when people are going to refuse godly correction. Surely this is vanity and vexation of spirit. Keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of the fools, for they consider not what they do. Evil, be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God, for God is in heaven, and thou upon earth, therefore let thy words be few. This is the practical side of worship. Slow down before you speak. In prayer, in testimony, in song, we need to pause to recognize God's holiness, because we need to have few words with weighty meaning. Solomon opens it here in verse 1 with a call to reverence. Keep thy foot when thou goest in the house of God. We need to approach worship with humility, ears open, lips closed, rather than mindlessly going through the motions. It can be pretty easy to do that. It says in here in verse 3, For a dream cometh through the multitude of businesses, and a fool's voice is known by a multitude of words. And it says this, it's anxiety and over-talking can cloud our focus. A dream cometh through the multitude of business, and a fool's voice is known by a multitude of words. When life's demands overwhelm us, our prayers are distractions instead of genuine communication with God. You can look upon these words, and it's a lot of language and a lot of ideas that you can think whenever you look through these words, but to have God reveal it to you is the best. And you can see, when thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay for it, for he hath no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. Vows before God are serious commitments. In prayer and baptism and church covenant, if we promise, God expects us to follow through. And vowest a vow to God, he has no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. It's powerful. Let me get this in frame. So, better is it that than thou shouldest vow and not pay. Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin, neither say thou before the angel that it was an error. Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice, and destroy the work of thine hands? Excusing broken vows as mistakes, it just proves you, and it should undermine your labor. And when we dishonor our commitments, we weaken any good that we have accomplished. It's saying here, it says, "For in multitude of dreams and many words there are also divers varieties, but fear thou God. If thou seest oppression of the poor, and violent perverting of judgment, and justice and province, marvel not at the matter. For he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they." When again, injustice, confronted with injustice, there will always be powerful oppressors, and the divine justice is going to outlast any earthly court or any of these earthly powers. It says, "Moreover, the profit of the earth is for all. The king himself is served by the field." No matter how exalted, even a king depends on the field, the produce of farmers. God's creation is going to sustain every social rank, and it underlines our dependence on his good gifts. "He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity." The love of money just breeds an insatiable appetite that you're always going to want more, you're always going to chase more, and then end up empty. It says, "When goods increase, they are increased that eat them, and good is there to the owners thereof, saving the beholding of them with their eyes." Again, growing resources, it just spawns more mouths, and the owner gains little beyond admiring the numbers, and wealth can become a spectacle, a vexing spectacle. This too is vanity, as it says, but also goods are going to increase, and it's about getting too rich, which a lot of us don't have that problem. "The sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eat little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. There is a sore evil which I have seen under the sun, namely riches kept by the owners thereof to their hurt." The sleep of a laboring man is sweet, but the abundance of the rich will not let you sleep. Like, hard work is bringing rest, even on modest rations, but the rich lie awake and anxious over their abundance. And true rest comes from contented work, not your bank balance, not having all the money in the world. And "there is sore evil which I have seen under the sun," and wealth becomes a sore evil when it sits idle. Solomon saw capital stored up, yet never enjoyed. As a paradox, he saw capital stored up, but he never enjoyed it, because you always wish for more. And it says, "But those riches perish by evil travail, and he that begetteth a son, and there is nothing in his hand." Fate can just snatch away your wealth. You can leave empty-handed at any time, and that's why you're not going to be able to sleep. And he says, "As he became forth of his mother's womb, naked shall he return to go as he came, and shall take nothing of his labor which he may carry away in his hand. And this also is a sore evil, that in all points as he came, so shall he go. But what profit hath he that hath labored for the wind?" Chasing the gains is going to yield no profits. Chasing the wind, it laboreth for the wind, is going to yield no profit. Labor without lasting rewards is, useless in a sense. Verse 17, "All his days also he eateth in darkness, and he hath much sorrow and wrath with his sickness. Behold, that which I have seen, it is good and comely for one to eat and to drink, and to enjoy the good of all his labor, that he taketh under the sun all the days of his life, which God giveth him, for it is his portion." Despite all the vanity, it's still about enjoying the simple pleasures. Food, drink, and honest work is God ordained. You could read, "Every man also to whom God hath given riches and wealth, and hath given him power to eat thereof, and to take his portion, and to rejoice in his labor, this is the gift of God." Contentment isn't automatic. It's a gift from God, and you can tell contentment isn't automatic because he searched for contentment and couldn't find contentment besides from God. And when he enables us to use and celebrate what we've earned, we experience life's true portion. Last verse, for he shall not much remember the days of his life, because God answereth him in the joy of his heart. No amount of striving or no amount of that you can see only force this joy, can force this contentment. Only God can grant the capacity to rest in contentment, can grant the capacity to rest in joy, and that alone turns labor into blessing. And we're getting into the last verse of the video, the last chapter of the video. This will put us halfway through. In terms of word count, probably not, but a little over. But as you can see, it ends on the 12th chapter in Ecclesiastes. So let's go ahead and finish the 6th chapter. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, and is common among men. He's saying an evil, universal, something universally harmful that he's observed everywhere. Even the good gifts of life can turn sour when God's promise is missing. It says, a man to whom God hath given riches, wealth, and honor, so that he wanteth nothing for his soul of all that he desireth, yet God giveth him not power to eat thereof, but a stranger eateth it. This is vanity, and it is an evil disease. This is a cruel paradox. God bestows abundance, and he can't enjoy it. And instead, a passerby feasts on his bounty. And Solomon calls this vanity. Not just vanity, but a disease. It says, if a man beget 100 children and live many years, so that the days of his years be many, and his soul be not filled with good, and also that he have no burial, I say that an untimely birth is better than he. A life measured in your longevity and your offsprings, it still fails if the heart doesn't find satisfaction. He's searched for satisfaction. He doesn't find satisfaction. Even the dignity of a proper burial is denied. Solomon is reminding us that quantity, be it, what you're chasing after, children, years, money, means little without quality of joy or quality of purpose. It says, for he cometh in with vanity and departeth in darkness, and his name shall be covered with darkness. Again, Solomon is like, he that cometh in with vanity and departeth in darkness, and his name shall be covered with darkness. Like a stillborn, short, unseen life is more merciful than a long, unfilled one. A child never tastes disappointment. It misses the bitterness of vanity. It says, moreover, he hath not seen the sun, nor known anything. This hath more rest than the other. Though he lived 1,000 years twice told, yet hath he seen no good. Do not all go to one place? And even 2 millennia offer no advantage if you never taste the good that God provides. Again, it circles back to death is the equalizer. Everybody returns to the same dust. All the labor of man is for his mouth, and yet the appetite is not filled. Again, it says the labor of man is for his mouth, and yet the appetite is not filled. It's pretty powerful. Labor under the sun still just doesn't quench the appetite for deeper longings. And it says here, verse, I'm going to go ahead and read a couple. This is pretty, am I dragging it? For what hath the wise more than the fool, and what hath the poor that knoweth to walk before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes and the wandering of the desire. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. Again, wisdom, the wise can offer insight, but it doesn't guarantee the length of it. It's been saying this for a while. And then it says, verse 9, experiencing God's gifts, the sight of your eyes, it surpasses endlessly chasing desires that just lead to vexation of the spirit. And it says, verse 10, that which hath been is named already, and it is known it is man, neither may he contend with him that mightier than he. seeing there be many things that increase vanity, what is man for the better? As life piles on more like wealth, achievements, pleasures, the condition just doesn't improve. Does one truly ever satisfy? No, not without God's will. And it says, "For who knoweth what is good for man in this life, and all the days of his vain life which he spendeth as a shadow? For who can tell a man what shall be after him under the sun?" Again, the final question echoes the book's refrain. Life passes quickly as a shadow, and the future remains a mystery. Only God knows what truly benefits our souls, both now and in the world to come. And to find contentment is to find God. Amen. I'm thankful being allowed to speak these words today. I'll definitely do a part 2 where I go through the other 6 chapters. But this is a pretty piece of poetry to just look upon. To look upon the whole book is better than just this first half of the book. But there's a lot of wisdom in here that I feel like from somebody that's lived all this experience, we can definitely take the wisdom from them. Again, thankful to be reading this, and I guess that's all I have to say.